Welcome to Strenuous Life Radio. Podcast deals with leaderpreneurs, entrepreneurs, men and women. They can learn the essentials and human skills of the strenuous life. Hello, folks. Welcome aboard. We're changing the deal. It was David Bartin, but Tim Bartin's good enough. We're going to be talking about a book that David Bartin wrote called The Bulletproof George Washington. Now, JR took over the saddle in the video, The Strenuous Life 2.0, the YouTube channel there. So I'm taking over the saddle for the next few days until I see that JR is willing to come back. But without any further ado, The Bulletproof George Washington with Tim Bartin.
In the mid-1700s, before there was an American nation, the French and British fought for control of the interior parts of America, the land eastward of the Mississippi River, and what became known as the French and Indian War. The Indians sided with the French and the Americans with the British. In 1755, General Edward Braddock arrived from England with 2 full regiments of troops. His job was to expel the French forces that were camped along the Ohio Valley territory. When he arrived, he heard tales of a young American officer whom he sought to add to his staff. This was a 23-year-old George Washington. George Washington and 100 Virginia buckskins joined General Braddock and his troops. In May of 1755, General Braddock and his troops marched toward the French Fort Duquesne, which is now Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. His troop was so large that it stretched for 4 miles long. After weeks of marching, when they were only a few miles from the fort, General Braddock unknowingly led his troops into a waiting ambush. The French and Indians, who were hiding behind the trees, opened fire on the British troop. And even though the British troop was much larger than their foe, General Braddock was not used to fighting an enemy who would not meet him on an open field. The French and Indians slaughtered the British troops, who made easy target with their bright red uniforms. The Indians specifically targeted the British and the American officers, knowing if they could kill the officers, the remaining troops would scatter. During the course of the battle, they shot every mounted officer except one. George Washington was the only mounted officer not shot during that battle, although he did have 2 horses shot out from under him. After hours of a brutal slaughter, when General Braddock was finally shot, George Washington assumed control of the troops and led them in a retreat to safety. When George Washington got back to Fort Cumberland, he wrote his brother and his mother a letter to assure them of his safety. He told them that,
"By the miraculous care of Providence, I have been protected beyond all human probability or expectation. For I had 4 bullets through my coat, and 2 horses shot under me, yet escaped unhurt, although death was leveling my companions on every side of me."
In fact, other history books recount that after the battle, he even brushed bullet fragments out of his hair. Word of Washington's miraculous survival spread quickly, and the Indians and American colonists sang his praise. In fact, one Indian chief, Red Hawk, who was instrumental in the French victory, told of shooting at Washington 11 different times without hitting him. And because his rifle was known as the one that never missed his mark, he ceased firing at Washington, convinced that the Great Spirit protected him. 15 years after this battle, in 1770, which was then a time of peace, Washington and his friend were exploring the undeveloped territory of that region, which was very near where the French and Indian War had taken place 15 years prior. One night, a group of Indians approached their camp, and an Indian chief stepped forward and told Washington,
"I have traveled a long and weary path, that I might see the young warrior of the great battle. It was on the day when the white man's blood mixed with the streams of our forest that I first beheld you. I called to my young men and said, 'Quick, let your aim be certain. He dies.' Our rifles were leveled. Rifles which but for you knew not how to miss. 'Twas all in vain. A power mightier far than we shielded you. Seeing you were
The Indian chief, this is from a documentary by David Bartin. He said that the Indian chief must have fired at him at least 16 times. And this is beautiful. I won't play this whole documentary because I don't want to spoil it or break any rules, governing copyright. But what I will say is that we're told in our schools now that the majority of our founding fathers were atheists, agnostics, deists, and oppressors. I worry about what is being taught in our schools, what our kids are learning about who they are, their identity as Americans. We really need to look into this, guys. I kid you not. It's scary. I was talking to my best friend last night. I said, for us now, it seemed like the 80s was a decade of innocence. It was, compared to half the crap that goes on now. I'm not going to deny that. And George Washington, I want you to think about that. One knows how many times he was shot at by those Indian braves. He got 2 horses shot out from under him, but yet God watched over him. He didn't die. Do you know of the 55 founding fathers, 52 were active members of the church? Why don't you think about that and come to that understanding? Because I'll tell you something, it's worth it. It's worth your time to think about it. Now, I hope you enjoy listening to the Strenuous Life Radio. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, become a part of the Strenuous Life Radio family. This is Jimi Hendrix saying until next time, don't just sit there and take it. Build your dreams so you can take it. Do what others won't so you can... Do what others don't so you can be what others won't. And do what others won't so you can have what others can't. And until next time, remember this. Think strong, and live the strenuous life. And remember this, from the bottom of my heart, Jimmy loves you. I really love you.